The NBA as we know it today has been characterized by periods of parity and dynasties. Which of these is better? That's not for me to decide. What is true, though, is that the NBA suffers from the American ideas of sports leagues, purposely losing games to gamble on future talent and the whole idea of the draft, concrete geographic divisions, and overdone playoffs. Now, with these shots at the current American sports landscape, you may be asking, what can I do to fix it? Well, I have just that, a brand new structure for the sport of basketball in the United States. This idea of mine encompasses a brand new basketball pyramid that spans nearly every corner of the United States, and becomes the first American system with promotion and relegation. Let's get to the specifics. As I've mentioned before, this 7-tier pyramid has a complete structure of promotion and relegation between its tiers, which become more and more regional as you descend down. Furthermore, because we now have a system of promotion and relegation, there will be no more draft. Teams will be free to sign eligible players as they please, a sort of mass unrestricted free agency once the collegiate season ends. Additionally, I've removed the playoffs. Now each game will be assigned a point total based on the outcome. For example, 3 points for an outright win, 2 points for an overtime win, 1 point for an overtime loss, and 0 points for an outright loss. These points will remain the same throughout the pyramid. At the end of the season, the team with the most points wins the championship title for their league. Additionally, foreign teams are removed from the competition. So say goodbye to the Toronto Raptors and Raptors 905 to the Canadian Elite Basketball League, and the Mexico City Capitans to the National Professional Basketball League. With that exposition out of the way, let's talk about each tier. This will be a long video with some more fun after we discuss the new structure. Tier 1. The first tier of this new pyramid retains the name of the NBA and its current American teams. That's all. There are now 29 teams, all within the United States. For the NBA and remaining leagues of this pyramid, each will play a double round-robin schedule. So for the NBA, it will be a 56-game schedule, home and away with every other team. I'm also going to broadly keep the current NBA schedule of October to April for all leagues to keep some familiarity. A total of 5 teams will be relegated every year from the NBA. Using the agreed-upon point system, 3-2-1-0, here's what the 24-25 season would have looked like. Unfortunately, I didn't take the time to separate overtime wins from regular ones, and the Raptors are still included, so take it with a grain of salt. Based on this, though, the 76ers, Pelicans, Hornets, Wizards, and Jazz would be relegated to the next tier of this pyramid. Tier 2. The second tier of this new pyramid would still be familiar to basketball fans. This tier takes the teams of the G League and makes them independent entities, regardless of how economically feasible it would be. This also opens the door to teams having development teams, or B teams lower down on the pyramid. I haven't included those, but they would more than likely be an important source of development for these teams. You'd also probably expect rebrands and new names, as they are essentially new teams. The Raptors 905 and Mexico City Capitans would be removed, leaving us with 29 teams for this revamped G League. Again, a 56-game double round-robin schedule with home and away games against every other team. Once again, I've done a somewhat recreation of what the 24-25 G League season would have looked like with our new system. Same problems as before, though. The removed teams are still here, and there's no overtime distinctions. However, based on this projection, the Stockton Kings, Austin Spurs, Osceola Magic, Westchester Knicks, and Salt Lake City Stars would be promoted, and the San Diego Clippers, Birmingham Squadron, Windy City Bulls, Texas Legends, and the Iowa Wolves would be relegated to our next tier. Tier 3. The third tier of this pyramid is the first of my creation. This new league would also be a nationwide league, and the inaugural teams of this league would serve to create new basketball hotspots and return to old markets. This league will have 30 teams, making a 58-game double round-robin season. I haven't created any branding for any of the new teams in this pyramid, as for one, that would take forever, and 2, it's hard to give over 1,000 places a unique identity. 5 teams would be promoted, and a total of 6 teams would be relegated to our next tier. Tier 4. This is our first literal fork in the pyramid. Instead of 1 league per tier, there are 2 concurrent leagues that are on equal footing, roughly splitting the country on an east-west basis. The 6 relegated teams from Tier 3 are divided in half and geographically split into a league. These league borders are not meant to be concrete either, because inevitably they would have to be moved. This idea of separate but concurrent leagues persists to the rest of the pyramid. The Western League is made up of these 30 teams, with 3 being promoted and 6 relegated, taking all the western states, including Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, and the Dakotas. The Eastern League is made up of the remaining states and made up of these 30 teams, again, with 3 being promoted and 6 being relegated. Tier 5 once again splits the country into more regionally focused leagues, remaining split on the east-west axis established by Tier 4, roughly cutting the west in half and the east into thirds. The 12 relegated teams from Tier 4 are divided with 3 teams to the Mountain Pacific and Central Leagues and 2 teams to the Southeastern, Midwestern, and Northeastern Leagues. Each league would promote that many teams to Tier 4 as well. The Mountain Pacific League is made up of these 30 teams, comprising California, Nevada, Arizona, Utah, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Alaska, and Hawaii. The Central League is made up of these 30 teams, comprising the states of New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Colorado, Nebraska, South Dakota, and North Dakota. The Southeastern League is made up of these 30 teams, and made up of the states of Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, and West Virginia. The Midwestern League is made up of these 30 teams, and comprises the states of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. Lastly, the Northeastern League is made up of these 30 teams and comprises Maryland, D.C., Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Tier 6, once again, we split the pyramid, this time from 5 regional leagues to 10 even more regional leagues. There are 30 relegated teams from Tier 5, so that means there will be 3 teams in each league, and 3 teams in each Tier 6 league being promoted. The Pacific League is made up of these 30 teams. It contains California, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, and Hawaii. The Mountain League is made up of these 30 teams and has Arizona, Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana. The Southwestern League is made up of these 30 teams and contains Texas, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. The Plains League is made up of these 30 teams and contains the states of Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado, South Dakota, and North Dakota. The Western Lakes League includes these 30 teams and is made up of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, and Missouri. The Eastern Lakes League includes these 30 teams and is made up of Ohio, Michigan, and Indiana. The Deep South League is made up of these 30 teams and contains Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. The Mid-South League is made up of these 30 teams and comprises South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, and West Virginia. The Mid-Atlantic League contains these 30 teams and contains Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, and D.C. The New England League is made up of these 30 teams and contains New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Tier 7. For the last time, we split the pyramid from 10 leagues to 15 hyper-regional leagues with the hopes to minimize travel expenses for these smaller teams. The relegated 60 teams do not neatly divide due to some repeats in league boundaries. I'll let you know the numbers when the league comes up. The California Coast League is made up of these 30 teams and is made up of California, Nevada, and Hawaii. 3 teams go between here and the Pacific League. The Northwestern League is made up of these 30 teams and contains Oregon, Washington, and Alaska. 3 teams go between here and the Pacific League. The Mountain League 2 is made up of 30 teams and contains Arizona, Utah, and Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho, and has 6 teams between here and the Tier 6 Mountain League. The Southwestern League 2 is made up of these 30 teams and contains the states of New Mexico, Texas, and Oklahoma. 6 teams go between here and the Tier 6 Southwestern League. The Plains League 2 is made up of these 30 teams and comprises Kansas, Nebraska, and Colorado, South Dakota, and North Dakota. 6 teams go between this and the Tier 6 Plains League. The Northern Lakes League is made up of these 30 teams and comprises the states of Minnesota and Wisconsin. 3 teams go between here and the Tier 6 Western Lakes League. The Midwestern League 2 is made up of these 30 teams and comprises Illinois, Iowa, and Missouri. 3 teams go between here and the Tier 6 Western Lakes League. The Eastern Lakes League 2 is made up of these 30 teams and comprises Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. 6 teams go between here and the Tier 6 Eastern Lakes League. The Southern States League comprises these 30 teams and is made up of Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. 3 teams go between here and the Tier 6 Deep South League. The Peach League is made up of these 30 teams and contains Florida and Georgia. 3 teams go between here and the Tier 6 Deep South League. The Southern Appalachian League is made up of these 30 teams and is made up of South Carolina, North Carolina, and Tennessee. 3 teams go between here and the Tier 6 Mid-South League. The Northern Appalachian League is made up of these 30 teams, contains Kentucky, Virginia, and West Virginia. 3 teams go between here and the Tier 6 Mid-South League. The Mid-Atlantic League 2 is made up of these 30 teams and comprises Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, D.C., and Delaware. 6 teams go between here and the Tier 6 Mid-Atlantic League. The Metro League is made up of these 30 teams and is made up of New York and Connecticut. 3 teams go between here and the Tier 6 New England League. The Northern Coast League comprises these 30 teams and is made up of Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. 3 teams go between here and the Tier 6 New England League. So, now that we've gone through the defined pyramid, what's below Tier 7? Well, more than likely, the smaller states would still combine together to have enough population to meet the need of a separate league. Maybe Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont together, or the Dakotas. Some states like Illinois and Washington may only need a statewide league to maintain enough teams, while states like California and Texas may need several levels to a state pyramid to maintain demand due to population. Now let's have some fun. We've cleared about 20 games from every team's schedule, keeping the same overall schedule, but reducing the workload. Now, let's create some tournaments and trophies for these teams to compete for during the season. First, we have the U.S. Basketball Cup. This is pretty much nationwide March Madness. To start, 44 Tier 7 teams are randomly drawn to begin the preliminary round. This will give us 22 teams to add to Round 1. Round 1 has the 22 preliminary winners with the rest of Tier 7 and Tier 6, giving us 728 teams and 364 Round 1 winners. Round 2 takes the winners of Round 1 and adds the 150 Tier 5 teams. This gives us 514 teams and 257 winners. Round 3 takes the 257 Round 2 winners and adds the 60 Tier 4 teams, giving us 317 teams and 158 winners, plus a bye. Round 4 takes the 159 winners of Round 3 and adds the 30 Tier 3 teams, giving us 189 teams, meaning 94 winners and 1 bye. Round 5 gives us the 95 winners of Round 4 and the 29 Tier 2 teams, giving us 124 teams and 62 winners. Round 6 gives us the 62 winners of Round 5 and the 29 teams of Tier 1, giving us the 91 teams and 45 winners and a bye. Round 7 is a play-in round for the standard knockout round of 32. 28 of the surviving 46 teams play, and these 14 winners of Round 7 play the 18 who do not get selected in Round 8 or the round of 32. This progresses with the standard bracket format from the round of 32 to the 16-8-4 in the championship game, where the best team in United States basketball is declared. Next, we have the regional cups, the Eastern Cup, and the Western Cup. These split the United States in half and are only available to tiers 4 through 7. They function as a mini version of the U.S. Basketball Cup, giving the smaller teams on the pyramid a chance to win a trophy during the season. Next are the tier cups. These function as tier-dependent cups, so every tier has its own cup, like the Tier 1 Cup, Tier 2 Cup, Tier 3 Cup, etc. The names would probably be different, but you get the point. This basically gives more rivalry to the levels of the pyramid and more community engagement. Next is the U.S. Super Cup, which would be the ceremonial tip-off to the new basketball season. The winner of the previous season's U.S. Basketball Cup would play the champion of the Tier 1 NBA. If they're the same team, the cup runner-up would play instead. Next is the U.S. Basketball Youth Cup. This is also a variation of the Nationwide Basketball Cup, but for the youth prospects of all of these teams. Since every team is now independent, they are free to create their own developmental teams and youth-specific teams, like, for example, the Golden State Warriors U23 or U21, or the College Park Skyhawks U18 or U16, even the Los Angeles Lakers U14 or U12, if they want to corner the youth basketball talent in Los Angeles. For the purpose of this competition, all youth teams U16 and older are invited to compete, but teams don't have to accept. This allows younger players to compete against older competition and further grow their skills. Lastly, of the ones I could think of, we have the NBA Shield. This is competed between the teams of the leagues that share the NBA name, the NBA, NBA 2, and NBA 3, functioning as a large single elimination knockout. Well, that's all I've got for this new NBA pyramid. Now, I know this would never happen and would require the redo of American sports history, but it's a fun hypothetical to think about.